Guys, hey, hello everyone. You guys, hey, thank you first and foremost for showing up today. Welcome to the Photographic Collective Podcast. My name is Miles Witt Boyer, and you guys, if you are tuning in here for the very first time, you're in for a little bit of a cool treat. It's actually our episode 1, season 2. And guys, I have it's funny to say. Normally, I would say I have a guest, but he's not really a guest. He's at every single episode. I've got my right hand dude. I've got Jared Fincher with us today. And for those of you guys that don't know, Jared is he's actually the magic behind this whole thing. So he handles all the editing, all the sound. He's also just sort of my right hand dude for the whole thing.
The magic.
The magic. Hey, Jared. Thanks for bringing the magic today, buddy.
That's right. Come on.
So hey, guys. Before I dive into Jared's story and we talk all about, we're gonna kind of go back and laugh about the last season and what kind of came from this, how we got to know each other actually, which is a whole other story. And I just want people to hear Jared's heart and Jared's, gosh, he's a talented photographer on top of everything else. But first things first, we do this at the beginning of every episode. I just think it's important to talk about the purpose of this podcast. So, hey, the purpose here is really 3 things. First things first, we want to encourage you to just up-level your life and then push that into your client experience to change the way that you see the art that you create and to add more value to that. Then secondly, we want to take that directly into your businesses so that you are serving and giving and affecting people in a more powerful and more intentional way. And then third, we want to invite you into a community full of like-minded artists and creatives, people over at the Photographic Collective Facebook page, and now as we kind of grow and scale all these relationships that are happening, behind the scenes, we want you to be a part of that. And guys, that's a totally free thing. This isn't a sales pitch. This is just us saying, if you hold a camera for a living, we want to get to know you better. Okay, so Jared, now that is out of the way, dude, so cool having you here as like as a part of this, like officially a part of this. So tell everybody really quick where you are, who you are, and what your typical role is for the podcast. First thing.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Jared. I am in Northwest Arkansas with Miles. I've been on his team for years and years and years now, and this podcast, man, this has been kind of an endeavor that we both kind of took on. I mean, how many months now? I mean, I know we're 15 episodes in.
15 weeks.
Is that right?
Yeah, 15 weeks. I don't know how many. Somebody do the math for me.
I don't know. So, I mean, that's a lot. But, so just a team effort of, hey, let's try to serve people through content. I mean, I think when we first kind of brainstormed about it, I just felt like you had good stuff to share with people. And we talked a lot about relationships, and everybody knows this about Miles, but Miles is a well-connected man with many relationships. And it's been so cool to hear the conversations with people, just to encourage people, just to, again, I say it all the time, like just to bring light, just a little bit of light into some darkness. So that's what I'm all about.
Dude, I love that so much, guys. I will say this, the entire concept, the entire idea behind this podcast was really Jared's idea. This is the 3rd different iteration of me having a podcast, but the reason that the other 2 failed was because there wasn't enough intention. It was just like, let's just get on and chat camera stuff and wedding stuff, and you know what? There's too many of those podcasts out there, isn't there, Jared? Like, I mean, be honest. Like, there's 100, so you came at me with this idea of like, man, why don't we do something that matters?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have. I really do. I think we have. I think we've learned some pretty powerful. I think back to the very first episode that was 6 minutes long, right? And it was me just being like, man, we're gonna keep these short and sweet. And now
short and sweet, now they're an hour and a half.
An hour, man. And okay, so I have to ask you. There's so many ways that I want to go with this chat with you, but I have to ask you first, just because we're already on the topic. Who or maybe what was your favorite episode from season 1?
Oh gosh, my favorite episode from season
Yeah.
1. I mean, I loved the conversation with Porto. I mean, that was super cool. I mean, it's just been cool to see all the different relationships. I mean, Matt Swaggart was on there. I mean, you had some like, not big name sounds weird, but just some influential people that it was good to kind of hear your voice alongside theirs and hear their stories. And this is something I tell Miles every week, but it's just cool to like see, just be able to affirm you in how you can draw things out of people so well. So I don't know if I have like a super favorite, but I do know that, man, some of those conversations when tears started coming down people's faces. I mean, Allison's podcast was awesome. I think I've Instagrammed her. I used to tell her that her voice is so easy to listen to.
Oh man,
you know, it's like so
she's got the
soothing.
Kenny G of podcast voice.
So people probably are not going to experience that today. That's for sure.
That's okay. You're going to edit this on the back end. Surely you can.
I know, but there's only so much I can do to my own. So.
Do you think you can lay some Kenny G in the background?
Probably.
Okay. All right. We're going to see if that can happen.
Yeah, for sure. And love in the background.
Man, I was laughing earlier to myself. I posted the YouTube video this morning, actually, from the episode with Petronella Lugimwa, that went live today, actually. So if you're hearing this or watching this live, this is actually next week's episode, right? But I was watching the YouTube video that I posted, and it's really funny. At the beginning of that video, you cropped out, you cut all this out of the audio, but at the beginning of this video is me saying, "Buckle up for this one, Jared."
Yeah.
This girl's a bucket full of firecrackers, and man, she is, isn't she? That was a cool episode for me as well. You know what, Ellie kind of blew my mind a little bit. Just her joy and how passionate she is about just kind of meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
That was a really neat one as
well.
We
did two with her, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and the Thanksgiving one. Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that one. I listen, we have a crazy, like I've got a wild list of guests that I've already asked to be a part of this and just haven't scheduled them yet. People do you know Tash Jones? Tash just did, she was the head judge for the Junebug Weddings 2021 Best of.
Okay.
She's going to be on here, and Tash is she is super cool. Like, she just has this wild vision for photography. So that's going to be a really cool one. Obviously, Paul Van Reeder, man, when I get the guts up to actually interview him, I think he's just waiting for the invitation. It's going to be a neat, I think season 2 is going to be really cool. Nadia is going to be from Square Muse is going to be, and she's a Nikon ambassador as well, which is like a cuss word around our company, but that's okay.
The glory days.
Oh yeah. Remember when, hey, anyway. Okay. So Jared, you've got a really fascinating story, and people don't know it. And it's one of the reasons for that is because you were just remarkably humble. But the other reason for that is because your role, the role that you tend to put yourself in is really as this like servant leader. You always sort of sit right behind me and sort of push me along. But I wanted to give you a chance to just talk and actually get some much deserved spotlight here. So back up before you held a camera, before you literally taught yourself how to be a part of this company and a part of this industry, what brought you to Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah. So just a little bit of my background. So I've actually served in church ministry for the past decade. We moved to Northwest Arkansas a little over 7.5 years ago, to serve in this church plant in Bella Vista, Arkansas, which is right outside Bentonville. And so me and my wife, we moved here. We took on that church. We met in a school. We took down equipment every Sunday, tore down a setup kind of environment every week. And I took on this staff position as a worship pastor. And so during those years of doing ministry, I kind of picked up a camera as kind of a bivocational kind of role, income, like God would provide through that. And so I just YouTube education, of learning how to take pictures of people and whatnot. And honestly, that's probably where real estate for me and architecture stuff began to kind of grow in me, and that became an avenue that I used as well. And so, I mean, I guess it wasn't till, I mean, I'm probably like a year into that of like faking it till I make it on that stuff when I meet Miles for the very first time. And Miles knows this about me, but like Miles will throw out names of people who I need to know who they are, and I never know who these people are. And Miles was one of those people that I had no idea who he was at the time, but I love people, and I love connecting with people, and I love just relationships. So I think I reached out to you. I don't know why.
I think it was because I put out a thing, right, and said that I wanted to take people to lunch. I think that was it. I may be wrong, but I think it was a thing that I just said, like, I miss hanging out with people in the industry, and then I just wanted to meet people for coffee or lunch or.
Yeah, I don't remember it, but it was super rando, and I still remember our first lunch together. It was epic. We both didn't get the what was it, the tomato jam on our hamburgers. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We both said no because everybody should say no to that.
So, yeah, what is tomato jam?
I don't know.
What is that?
Oh, it was baking jam, not tomato jam. Oh. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But it was something
spreadable
weird.
Bacon feels like a weird.
But I knew we were kindred spirits after that moment of saying no to the baking jam.
Man, and that initial meeting went sort of something like this for me, and you know this story.
Yeah, let's see your version of it.
Yeah, but it went kind of something like this. I have for years and years and years, I've pictured this photographic collective, this thing that we talk about all the time now, but I've tried to visualize what that looks like in action, like in practicality, and so about the time that you came along was really when I was sort of, I was trying to grip to this idea of like, how can I, like me as an individual, how can I create opportunities for people? How can I force doors wide open and then push people through them? And you just had this kind of confidence in who you were and what you were doing. And you basically said like, sure, yeah, I mean, I'll come be a part of that. I'll come hang out and sort of be a part of that and sort of see where that goes. But I remember you telling me early on, but no pressure, Miles, like no pressure. And it's so funny because I have, over the course of the last 7 years working with you, at any given time, I have always felt so much pressure to provide and open doors and take care of all of us as a team, and our employees and their families and the kids. And you've always been the one that's been really quick to say like, hey, Miles, no pressure. And I would tell you here recording and literally live, I think probably the largest catalyst to me looking at the Photographic Collective from a brand new lens in 2020 and saying like, what if this isn't about me? Right? Like, what if it isn't about how many doors I can open or how many opportunities I can create or how many ways and different mediums through which my name can penetrate the industry? What if instead this is just an opportunity for me to come alongside other people like you and no pressure?
Yeah.
And that was such a cool thing for me. And so I've never, I mean, I've told you thank you for that 100 times, but I don't know if I've ever told you thank you for that publicly. So, but seriously, that was a massive turn in the way that I do work. Okay, so fast forward now several years, and you kind of run this. You kind of run this parallel photography. You're still in ministry, and we'll get there. But this parallel photography world, because you still shoot weddings and portraits and families and all of that stuff, both alongside me and on your own all the time.
Yeah.
But you've really become kind of an expert in something that I didn't know prior to you that there was such a thing. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, back in the early years, I kind of took on real estate as a form of photography, and something that I guess the market needed it here. And so something that I was interested in learning about, because it's kind of a whole different world in that realm. So 6 years later, I've been shooting real estate and architecture stuff for the past 6 years, and it's come a long way. And so now I've gotten a chance to be a part of some pretty big projects of buildings and just really cool things that aren't people. So it's just really different. And so what I discovered in those years of doing that stuff, even with people in photography, like I really love taking things that, you may look at and not really see the true beauty in it, and like helping reveal that. And that may sound kind of cheesy with real estate.
No, not at all. Go
but
there.
Like
Go
that's
there.
that's kind of like how I look at it. I mean, I go into these people's houses to take their pictures, and they're looking to me to help bring their house to life, so that other people will see it and ultimately want to buy it. But the stuff I really enjoy doing is the architecture, like portfolio stuff for like an architect, or something like that, because that's really cool. Because here's their like pride, like their pride and joy of something that they built, and I get to come in and try to capture it in a picture, where people can see it and they get to share that with people. So that's something I've had to grow in over the years. But it's something where I've landed even in this past year of like really kind of setting into that, to know that like this is what I really enjoy doing, and this is really what I want to pursue really heavily alongside all the other stuff that we're doing. So yeah,
man, and it's so cool. You guys that are hearing him talk about this, I would guess, and photographers, let me know actually, like in the DM, or send me a message, something. I may be way off here, but I'm used to hearing wedding photographers and elopement photographers and kid photographers talk with this sort of like passion about what they do. But to hear the way that you talk about real estate photography, it's actually really, it's sort of beautiful. Like there's this sort of artistic way that you've captured it that is, it's really special, if I'm honest. Guys, I'll tell you, I'll back up just a brief story. So, I was for a couple of years, I was actually a professor of photography, and I taught lighting. And prior to that, I worked for several different photo studios, and I'm kind of a lighting guy. Like I sort of understand how light works. I feel like I have a grasp on how light works. And I went to a shoot with Jared. We were actually shooting some marketing material for a wedding venue that some friends of ours own. And I went to the shoot with Jared, and he had me walk around this room with a flash gun in my hand, and he was popping the flash off, and I was trying to figure out what in the heck this guy's doing. And he was painting light with multiple exposures, and I still have no idea how it works. And then I saw the image on the back end, and it's so funny. I've been in this venue 100 times, and it has never looked that pretty. And so when you say something like that, like you feel like you kind of are able to sort of pull the beauty out of something, I actually totally agree. I wouldn't in and of itself typically walk into a place like this and call it beautiful. And then I see those images and I'm like, man, there's a lot of art just like hanging out in the shadows. So
cool.
Like juxtapose that with your love. So you've said you've been working in full-time ministry, but you're in worship ministry, really. So
Yep.
And you've released several albums or singles and stuff like that.
Music, yeah.
So tell us, where did all that start for you?
Yeah. I mean, music's kind of my first love. I mean, that has a deep place in my heart. So I've always used music. That's kind of been like my tool and gift to serve the church. And so even though right now I'm not in full-time pastoral ministry, I still serve the church through music, and through worship leading. And man, that's like my sweet place. I love doing that. I love leading people. It's just like another, this is stuff I'm discovering this year. It's just like another avenue for me to elevate things. Like I've kind of come up with this catchphrase of like capturing, creating things so that I can elevate. And, if that be a house or a couple or like a family, or if it's the Lord, in worship, if it's Jesus, like I want to do that. Like I want my life to be about that, that everything that I do, like let it be bringing light into the situation. Let it be elevating people up and encouraging them. And so through music, yeah, I mean, I've grown up from a really young age playing piano and the guitar and singing and writing songs. Just it's ridiculous. Some of the stuff that I've done in the past, but with music, but yeah, something I still really enjoy, and I'm just using it a little bit differently now in the year that we're in right now. So it's been really refreshing, though. It's been cool.
The reason I asked that is because I've learned over the course of the last like 15 episodes, talking to all of these different artists, and then just chatting with friends of mine off air, right? Mm. But I've learned that I feel like all of us have this this thing in common. Those of us that I think would really consider ourselves artists, and there's a lot of photographers out there that are really trying to find their voice right now, and they're kind of caught in that. You've heard me harp on this forever. They're caught in that content creator trap, right? Of like, I don't know if I create art, but I capture content. That isn't me, and another time
I want it to be me. Yeah,
that's a disgusting way to look at what you do. It's just a really fast way to belittle the value in what you do. But those of us that really consider ourselves artists, what I've learned is that most of us have multiple mediums through which we really find that expression. And when you learn it, and I want your take on this, because what I'm learning about myself as a writer is when I lean in to writing, when I lean into words, it makes my photography stronger. And I've seen that from you in the last several years. It sort of feels like as you've leaned into multiple mediums and just expression, like just letting that soul and art come out. How has that increased, or has it for you, kind of like the joy going back and forth?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a little bit of my personality, and I think a lot of creatives can probably relate to it. Like, I like doing different things. Like, I like not being stuck in, one lane of creativity. Like, I love writing music. I love, shooting couples. I love doing families. I love shooting, architecture or houses or whatever it is.
You notice he didn't say weddings. He did not.
Yeah, no, weddings in there.
I'm just kidding.
There's couples. Just and just stretching myself maybe to not get bored. I mean, that can get to a bad extent where like you're never content, and I struggle with that as well. So I think there's a healthy balance there to, use the gifts that God's giving you, and use them in different avenues, but not get so, I guess, bogged in the trap of like getting bored and like, I want to just move on to the next thing, not commit to anything. So.
Yeah, I think about this a lot. And to just echo what you just said, I think about this a lot. I feel like most of us are okay these days considering ourselves as an expert in something. But there's sort of this like lost art of master. Like what comes after expert? Like not that I've become, and I'm not talking about myself, right? But like that you pour into something and you get just good enough at it that it makes you money. And then you sort of sit back and say like, okay, I'm just going to hang here. And a few people, and I would put you in that camp. A few people that I know that they are more than good enough, and yet they just keep going. Like they just keep learning just to say they learned. So okay, in contrast to my outrageously overpriced, sorry that I said that out loud, but it's true, photo degree, how did you learn photography?
You're looking at them in your computer screen. It was you, man. Like, I mean, I joked about having a YouTube education before, but I mean, I feel like, man, we met 6 years ago and you took me kind of under your wing and kind of had this attitude of, what's mine is yours. And I mean, that's where, the light switch came on. I mean, I think it's just a testament of, I really think that true leadership is leadership that is not afraid to give it away, I just, I think that's important. And so I would throw it right back at you to say, man, I've learned so much from you. And I think a lot of people are that kind of learner, like hands-on, and man, you gave me that. So it was pretty cool.
I will say, I'm so grateful for that answer, but I don't think it's enough. I love that I can hear the girls playing in the background.
Yeah, it's totally not the TV. It's totally the girls in the hallway.
Guys, no, if you're listening to this right now, the fact that you get to actually hear this is Jared's real life. It's his little girls playing in the background. It's so amazing. Don't squash that for a second. So
good.
So I lost my train of thought. Okay, so I will tell you that I think the fact of the matter is about you is that you are fully capable of learning on the fly, but you're humble enough to not be too assertive or too aggressive with what you've learned. Like, you just keep learning. I had a really cool opportunity, you guys. A few days ago, Jared and I were asked to come in and speak for this pretty large group of people. Actually, it turns out over Zoom there was quite a few of us in there, Jared. But the one of the larger real estate companies in Arkansas, actually, evidently the largest, from what we found out at that meeting, right?
But they said
that's what. If you didn't know, that's what they said. But asked us to come in and speak about like personal branding and social media marketing, as well as better use of photography in these realtors' lives. And I had a whole presentation built out that was totally in my comfort zone. And then at some point, I basically just looked at you and I said, okay, Jared, take the reins.
Yeah.
And man, the fact that I don't have it recorded, it breaks my heart, because you were just pouring out.
Good Lord.
You were just pouring out like powerful amounts of information for these people. So my point is, sometimes I forget. I know that you're an expert. I know that you are. Like, I know that you know lighting just as well as a lot of the people that we've had on this show. Like, I know that you understand how off-camera flash works just as well as Jason Vincent. And I know that you understand how, like, technical camera work happens just as well as Phil Porto. But sometimes I forget, because you're so humble, that you have mastered these things. There's no question there. Just like, I wish I could like edit in applause here, because it's really cool to have like a front row seat to that. Okay, so tell me this really quick.
Okay.
Because I know almost nothing about your childhood, but I kind of want to. So we're gonna like back. Oh
gosh.
Okay, take me back to like back when you had hair and no beard.
Oh, man.
I'm trying to picture
it was
that,
real. It happened.
And now I mean, I know about you and your wife Adrienne, and I mean some of that story. But what were you like? Have you always been really artistic? Have you always been very creative, or is that something you kind of stumbled into?
Yeah, I mean, music was kind of my thing, even growing up, from a really early age. I mean, singing all the time, writing songs all the time. Like, that was my outlet, my kind of way of expressing myself. And even to like, even coming to now to look back on seeing like, oh man, that probably wasn't super healthy, to finding my significance in the spotlight, or being the younger guy, but being put up in leadership in different areas at like a young age, and being like, man, look at this, like everybody's watching me, and not even like seeing that in the moment, but through a lot of counseling and stuff, even in the past couple of years, have come to see like, that stayed with me. Like, I really value people's opinions of me to a really negative extent. And I don't know if people can relate to that as a creative, but I find a lot of my significance in the wrong things. And that's what it was growing up. I think in music, wanting to impress people, wanting people to be in awe of like a gift that I'm giving, it, it became like my motivation, you know? And so you take that into the church world to where like your motivation, it should look very different than that. Because when it is about you, that's just your downfall, and it never ends well when it becomes about you. And so, yeah, I think from an early age, and even through high school, through college, like I think that's always been a struggle of what is my significance, like what do I have to give? Is it good enough? You know, asking those kind of questions. So, and honestly, like I'm in recovery, you know, like this is stuff that I'm learning now, and it's stuff I learn, you know, daily. But really, in the year of you know our 2020, you know, year of stepping back from everything, and discovering who we really are, I think I discovered a lot of that, and it's stuff that I'm trying to change. Not being so concerned with what people think and what they're expecting of me, but just to give my best, in everything I do, and let the chips fall where they need to, and know that God's going to take care of me. I mean, these are rabbit trails, but I mean, just getting to the point of like, good Lord, I just want to serve people. If I can just serve people, like, and this is for me, like, if I can just serve people, like God's going to take care of me. And the year of 2021 has been a prime example of how that's happened. And so taking my eyes off of like, how can I make this money or grow my business or whatever, blah, 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 and just focus on what's in front of me and the people that God's putting in front of me, to where I can serve them, with like just a different kind of love that like people look at and they're like, man, I want some of that, you know, like I want to look different. I want to, I want to be that. So I feel like taking that shift, and then it makes me not worry so much about, you know, like, is this significant enough or whatever, but to know like this is significant to God and that's good enough for me, you know, and knowing that, I don't have to worry about these things like making enough money or providing for my family, because God's he works it out when my motivation is to make him known and the things that I do to bring light. So, man, I'm just like a walking testimony of his grace. So it's pretty cool.
Dude, that is so, it's
Okay, I'm
so
done.
powerful. No, are you kidding me? That's so crazy powerful. Here's why. You guys that are listening, you know, regardless, and I want to be the first person to say this, regardless of your political views or your religious views or where you're at in your life right now, like where your soul is at. I want you to back up. I want you to listen to the last 2 or 3 minutes one more time. Because what Jared basically just broke down is that the answer to imposter syndrome, the answer to insecurity, the answer to falling into the trap of comparison, the answer to feeling alienated and isolated on social media, the answer to feeling insignificant in your work or in your value, the answer to feeling as though your clients don't appreciate you. Like all of those things that are very real problems in our industry, like these are tangible, tactile issues that we're fighting through as an industry. And Jared, in the last 3 minutes, basically said, if you could just find joy, like if you could just find purpose and just find joy, and then let the rest of it straighten out. And so for you, that was learning to serve people, right? That was having a little bit of faith and just saying like, hey, I assume that if I just love on people well, things will kind of work out.
Yeah. I mean, to that point of like the kind of like love of people that has no agenda. And that's like, that's so hard for, I mean, I'm just thinking of myself here. Like, it's so hard for me to go into something and give something and not think in the back of my head, like, I hope I get something back, or like, I'm going to do this favor and, maybe weeks down the road, like it'll come back around. Like, throw that stuff out the window and stop worrying about, is this going to be paid back to me? Or, like, is this going to help me in the end? It doesn't matter. What matters is that if you can love people without an agenda, you're going to be different than half of the people out there who are serving under this, under this mask of really doing it with an agenda because they want to network or make a connection. But man, you come at somebody just to hear them speak or listen to their story and care for them in that way, and them being like, well, what do you want? And you're like, I don't want anything. I just want to know you. I just want to be in relationship with you. And that's all I need. It really does. It's different than how most people function. But I would argue that it's the best way to run your business. It's the best way to make money, because what happens is when you serve people that way, money is just a side effect.
It's a byproduct.
Yeah, it's a byproduct of it. Your growth is a byproduct of it. And I mean, I've seen it just in my own life. I've seen it in your life. I mean, it's cool. And I think another byproduct from it is joy and purpose. I mean, gosh, if you start living for somebody other than yourself, I think you have to start doing that before you'll actually find joy. You'll find some hope. And you can make it through 2020s,
Well, yeah, man. I think often we get stuck in this silly trap of like, it's like we're living in an episode of Shark Tank. Right. And we're just walking around as small business owners. We're walking around and we're asking people to like pitch us, like prove your value to me and whether or not I'm going to invest back into you. And we're just, it's like we feel like we have that kind of power to say like, no, you're overvalued. Your worth is not what you think it is. But I would flip that and I would say like, man, how powerful would a show like Shark Tank be if it was all about like people coming in with a great idea and no business savvy, no sales, no pitch, no concept, but they have a great idea. And then to have Mark Cuban look at him and be like, hey, listen, I believe in you. Like, what a powerful, you know what? And the ratings would probably suck, but here's why. Here's the reason why. Because we love to chase answers to our own insecurities. And so when we watch other people battle things, it makes us feel better about ourselves. Right. But if you'll look at the last several episodes, right? Like you look at Petronella and her falling apart, like falling into tears, talking about the only thing that triggered that was me saying, why do you feel so compelled to tell the stories of people whose stories aren't being told? And she fell apart, right? And then back up to Allison and how powerful and emotional she got when she was talking about the fact that like photography for her was the only way that she had to bond with her dad after her mother passed away. Right? And these are intangibles. These are things that you can't, there isn't a valuation on these things. There isn't a price. There isn't a dollar sign. And yet some of the most influential people that I know have found purpose in things that don't have, a product behind them. And so anyway, I go on that tangent to basically say like, it's one of the reasons I really wanted to have this chat with you. And I wanted to have it on the air is because one of the things that I value probably most about you and our relationship is the fact that at different times over the course of the last 7 years, you have had really large paychecks and you have had no paychecks at all, right? $0 paychecks, you guys. And your joy hasn't changed. Right. Well, now that's not to say we haven't had pretty hard conversations. We've had pretty hard conversations a few times that have said like, hey, what is the point in this? Or what's the future in this? Or like, Miles, cast vision, because if you're not going to lead better, I can't follow better. Right. Like we've had those conversations, but your joy hasn't changed. And I think we just got there. I think it's because your joy isn't based on success. Your joy is based on people.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, just thinking about all these little things, all these crafts that we do, like music and photography and whatever, like, man, if that's stripped away, if all my hope is in that, like, that can end tomorrow. I mean, I could lose my arms, in a car wreck or something tomorrow. Like what then? If all my hope is in, photography or whatever, all my joy, happiness, whatever.
Your only personal value, right? The only way that you see yourself in the mirror.
Sheesh. It won't last. And I think when you realize that this is just a thing, man. I said that about music a lot. Like, man, this is just a thing. It's just an avenue. This is just a tool to be used for something greater. And that comes back to relationship for me. I mean, taking pictures of families and doing weddings, it's all about relationship. And so I want to be really intentional in that time to say, hey, if I'm going to be put in this situation with these people to try to capture the best photos that I can of them, I also want to capture the best conversations with them, ever, because I may never see them again. It's like, what do you have to lose, man? People just want to be loved. And my hope can't be in these things that I really do enjoy a lot and love, and would be really sad if I lost it. But my hope's not in that.
Yeah, so. But let me give you guys context as well, because I think it's valuable to say this, that you can have both though. Like, Jared is charging, frankly, he's charging a premium for his time, because he's realizing right now that his time is valuable. Like, these relationships that he's building, these families that he's serving, they're paying more than they would to go elsewhere. Right? These architects are paying more than they have to. There are cheaper options out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, the flip side of this is when you're living like this, like when you're investing in yourself and you're investing in your relationships like this, people want to invest back. Like, it's valuable because they're the ROI for them. Like, the return isn't just the images. That's not what your clients are getting back. They're getting the other end of the relationship, and that's worth a lot.
It is.
That's a really cool thing. So let's cast some vision then for this season, for season 2, because I think that is literally where we've headed here is basically, is basically like, I think your and my trajectory towards like this. There's plenty of podcasts out there about like the business of wedding photography, business of photography, right?
Yep.
There's plenty of workshops that'll teach you how to use your camera better, right? So if you could see, because I know you sit behind the scenes on these things, but then also you have to listen to every single episode. Like, you have to listen to me blabber on and on and on.
On and on and on.
I know, like an Outcast song. So what if you could cast vision, like if you could say, I want this podcast to go, finish that sentence.
Yeah. Well, I hate to repeat myself over and over and over again, but I would love this podcast to be a light in the dark, that you could pull people in to encourage the masses, man. I mean, that's I feel like when we first talked about, like, could this just be a tool? Like, could this be a tool to reach thousands of people? Heck yeah, it can. And not by our power. Like, what if we just go in here and with that attitude of like sharing stories of awesome people to encourage others? Like, what if we just went in to do that? And if 6 people listen, then heck, we just like impacted 6 people's lives. And so, like, I know you can speak to this, but like, I feel like we've had to like shift our kind of thought process of like, hey, if we don't hit thousands of people with these podcasts, then like, let's not do that, or let's not do the podcast if we can't reach the thousands or whatever. But to say like, hey, we're okay just reaching who we reach, and we're not here for the numbers. And if that works out, great. If it doesn't, like our purpose is to just bring light. That's what I want.
Yeah, man. I know you get to see this every week, though. What's powerful for me, you're right. At first, I was chasing these insights because I felt like that was I felt like that was the purpose, right? Like, that's what you do. You start a new venture and you start to chase the data. and say, like, are we speaking to the right people in the right places?
Is this being successful?
Yeah. Is it working?
Yeah. Is it working?
You know, how quickly do we monetize? Where do the sponsors come from? And man, every week right now, watching people, you know, repost and share the stories, or send me little messages that are like, whoa,
That's
like, holy
cool.
cow, that one hit. Or you know, last week with Allison spent a good part of Friday sending me screenshots of people, friends of
So you
hers that were
cool.
texting her that were like, man, this guy totally sees you. And he's totally pulled what you love about photography and put it out into the world. Man, what a cool.
That's pretty neat.
I mean, I'll take that. Man,
Makes it worth it.
If that's not
cool.
worth a couple hours of work a week, I don't know what is.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of the vision for our guests moving forward, for our topics moving forward, is just like, hey, how do we love people? Like, how do we do this differently? And then, like I always say at the beginning of the podcast, right? Then the purposes, like the third purpose is always to bring people into community. And that, I think, if I had to say anything about sort of my vision for this next, you know, 10 episodes, 12 episodes, it's that. It's to not just put out great information, but to invite them in and say, like, hey, there is some good stuff happening. We created that same thing. Do you remember? I think I created that Facebook page initially, like, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And it just sat there dormant for probably 5 years. And then all of a sudden I kind of looked at it and was like, hey, let's just let this be a home for people. Like, let's let it scale. And these days it's this neat conversation, people going back and forth and like chatting about, you know, the last several days have been us talking about Phil Porto's surgery and you know, him having come out of the other side of that in the best possible scenario. And I want to get to that before we wrap up this episode as well. So, well, Jared, dude, tell us about, like, where you're headed. Like, what comes next? Because a guy like you doesn't act without some level of vision. So what is life like for you in the next few years?
That's a great question, man. I feel like we're kind of in that season, kind of dreaming. And, you know, I actually listened to a really cool podcast the other day that the guy was talking about, because we're just, our family's kind of in a different season right now of resting, and just coming out of church ministry full time and doing photography full time now. And so kind of coming out of that, trying to figure out what's next for us, Lord. And in this podcast, this guy was talking about kind of that idea of so often it's like, yeah, I'm just taking a break. Like, you know, I'm taking a break from playing music on Sundays or taking a break from this. And he kind of rephrased it to what the Bible talks about. It talks about waiting on God. It doesn't talk about taking breaks. It talks about waiting. And so I think I'm in a season of waiting on God. And in that waiting, I'm doing a lot of dreaming. Like, I want to excel at the things that he's putting in front of me. And architecture is one of those things that, like, I want to take off. Like, I want to do really cool things with this. And even our partnership is, like, shifted and changed and gone all new level. Like, we're on, like, a whole new level now.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, so just excited and dreaming about what's next for that and how that looks. How do we take on these? How many weddings is it for next year? It's like,
I've got 28 booked,
yeah. Okay.
I think,
so
2022.
Yeah. I mean, just dreaming about.
Heaven help me.
Yeah.
We just booked another one for 23 today, by the way. I haven't had a chance to talk to you about. So, yeah.
So I think that's going to be really cool. And I'm looking towards that and just seeing how God's using things and just taking care of us. And so I'm really, that's kind of where I feel like I'm headed is I'm in a season of waiting and I'm not going to be there forever. And I think in that season of waiting, I want to be ready. And so I think right now, like, I'm soaking up all these awesome tutorials at the end of the year here of, like, just learning new things. I want to always be a learner. And I think we all should be that way, like, always be available to learn from people, because everybody has something to give. And so be willing to not know it all. And that's where I want to be. So in the next couple of years, I think that's where I'm headed.
That's really cool. That's powerful. Well, dude, I don't know. I get to, it's funny. Like I get to call you, one of my closest friends. I get to tell people, well, yeah, I mean, you are, because this is a special one for me. You're the first guest on this podcast that I really have that like intimate like history with. But also I just get to tell you bluntly, like you've just been such a massive inspiration for my work and where we're headed as a family, where my heart is at and what I want. And so I'm just really grateful for that. I'm grateful for for Adrian. I'm grateful for both of your little girls, which by the way, guys, if you get the opportunity to like click over and see a picture of Jared's beautiful family, I probably took it. And
yeah, it's true.
Shameless plug there.
Yep.
And
get their looks from their mom.
And if you get my Christmas card this year, Jared took that. So
that's right. Boom.
Yep.
See how that worked?
Select few. Well, guys, I hinted at this briefly earlier, and I just want to drop this in here really quick and not ask a ton out of you guys, because that is not the purpose of the podcast. But I want you guys to know. So many people, it's by far, it's the most listened to episode that we had in season 1 was the episode with Phil Porto, where Phil initially told everybody about some of the health problems that he was going through and some of the things that he was facing. And so I wanted to give everybody an update on that. His surgery was this last week. It was an exploratory surgery to just try and get a little sliver, a biopsy of that tumor behind his eye. And it actually was significantly more successful than they thought it was going to be. So a 7-hour surgery took just over 3 hours, and they got a good portion of the tumor, and they actually are at this point calling it benign, which is like best case scenario.
Awesome.
Man, isn't that good? Like, isn't that good?
Some good news.
So, but here's what I will tell you guys, just as a community, I will tell you guys, Phil's family here right before Christmas, Phil's family is going to be on the hook for just over $90,000. From this procedure. And so, as a community, as a group of friends, and as an individual, I'm going to be setting up a GoFundMe page for Phil in the next couple of days. I've been talking really closely with him to make sure that he's comfortable with that, but and just asking you guys as a part of our community to sort of consider coming alongside his family and supporting in that way. It's a really cool way that we can kind of, band together and make this more valuable than just photo high fives, Hey, last thing, we got a few of these through, but it just says Facebook user. Gents, hello, cool. Dang. Well, you know who that is. The only person that ever calls us gents is David Kovacs.
Oh,
it has to be David Kovacs. So, all right.
Facebook user.
Then random Facebook user says, "Gents, hello. Hey, y'all, if you've tuned in, if you've made it nearly an hour into this podcast, just a big thank you for letting Jared and I just sort of spit back and forth and chat and hang. Jared, thank you, dude. Your time is valuable these days, and so thanks for wasting a little bit of it with me. I really appreciate that.
Love being in front of the camera, man. Anytime.
It loves you. Man, you're so handsome right now.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, as we sign off, because this guy is going to be one of our future guests. We've been talking back and forth about this forever, and I want you to burn him right now so I can tag him in this and make sure that he commits to picking his date. What are you getting off here? You getting off here? To do something very important with your time. And I want you to tell us all what that is.
Well, me and Ryan T, we got our second guitar lesson happening in about 10 minutes.
Oh, I love it.
So he's got to learn a Christmas song before Christmas. He kind of waited to the last minute, but I'm up for a challenge.
Man, I want to be able to live stream that more than anything. So you guys that don't know, Ryan Teague is he's a buddy of ours from the other side of the world, Feather and Finch Photography. He's a freak photographer, super talented, great dad, just a great guy. And yeah, now he's learning how to play guitar. And our very own Jared Fincher is teaching him over Zoom. Yeah.
There's something there. There's some talent there.
Yeah. Well, he's like the God's gift. He's like the specimen.
He's a rock star.
Yeah. He looks like it. He looks like the type of guy. You should just be able to auto-tune him and you'd
I
fix
just want to listen to him talk. That's why I'm doing it.
All right, man. Well, Jared, love you, buddy. Thank you so much for this. I know you've got a lot you've got to get to. Listeners, you guys, thank you so much for investing your time. 15 episodes now worth of time into this silly little podcast. We're just so grateful for you, and we hope that you will stick with us for at least another 15.
Come on, baby.
Yeah.